Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining today's web conference, the NAHMS Equine 2015-2016 call. With that, I'll turn the call over to Abby Zaire. Abby, please go ahead.
Thanks, Daniel. Good morning, everybody. It's been a long time coming, and it's so great to finally be here today, and I'm thrilled with how many people were able to join us today. For those of you who don't have your hard copy training manual, that manual can be found on the NAHMS website, which is aphis.usda.gov/NAHMS, and you'll just go to NAHMS Equine 2015, and then under Equine Study Questionnaires, you can find the manual there as well as any videos that we've posted. So my portion is more towards the end. I have a checklist of things I need to go over with the coordinators. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jason Baldwin to go over a few things with us.
Hi everybody, and thanks for being on. Just a quick word about how things are going to go today. We have this webinar today scheduled for 3 hours, but we're not going to go 3 hours straight. We're going to take a break every 45 to 50 minutes or so. And we would ask that you do come back from break on time. We will start on time after breaks. When we pause, we will be able to take questions, and Daniel told you how to submit your question, either by chat or on the phone. We're going to go through the manual today, and we may have to change up the order of the sections that we cover based on the availability of our speakers. So with that, I will turn it over to your study coordinator, Dr. Josie Chalditis.
Thanks. So welcome, everybody. We really appreciate you being on the call. I wanted to go over a few things in the way of a summary for the role for coordinators. So we're hosting this training for the coordinators, but also for any VMOs or AHTs that might be involved in collecting data for the study. And so I'm going to go through some ideas I have about the coordinators' roles, because that's not a specific area addressed in the training manual. And then we have multiple very seasoned coordinators on the call today that are part of the equine study. So those of you that are new to coordinating, we're hoping that our more seasoned people can give you some tips on some of the aspects of working within the NAHMS equine study. So I'm going to go through things that I came up with as potential roles of the coordinators. So the first thing is the coordinators should review the list of potential participants that were sent to each coordinator on USBC. And based on the location of the operations and the personnel available in the state, the coordinator needs to determine how best to accomplish contact and visits to each operation. We want them to determine how best to make initial contact with the equine operations. So we here in NAHMS Central do not get into the details of how the coordinators will accomplish making this initial contact. I put forward options that the coordinator can assign the initial contact to the VMO who will be doing the visit. They could assign someone in the state in their office to make initial contact and set up a visit time and then assign a VMO to do that visit. Or the coordinator will likely be doing some of the visits themselves. Lastly, the coordinator can make initial contact and set up times for the visits and then assign the visits to a VMO that then goes on to do those visits. We need to be sure the coordinators have everyone involved in phase 2 of the study sign the non-disclosure agreement and send the completed original forms to Abby. Kath Marshall, who will speak here in just a couple of minutes, she's the acting M&M director, will go into that a little bit more when she speaks. We think the coordinators need to assure that the VMOs and animal health technicians doing the visits have adequate training and support to conduct the visits. So we need to have them either on this live webinar we're doing right now and provide the training manuals that we've provided to the coordinators out to their VMOs and AHTs. Or we can have the VMOs and AHTs listen to the recorded webinar. The webinar we're doing right now is being recorded, and we hope to have it available for you within a few days. Or they can, and we would like everyone involved in the study to view the training modules, which are different from this training webinar. They've been pre-recorded, and the site that Abby gave you, we have those training modules, and she'll talk a little bit more about the topics that are part of those training modules. We encourage coordinators to host further training in the state above the options that I just listed, because it's really the coordinators assuring that everyone that goes out has adequate background and training to conduct the visits. And then the coordinators need to be available to discuss any issues they're having, the VMOs and AHTs, as they make the farm visits. We here in NAHMS are available to assist as issues come up. Abby is your point of contact, and she'll reach out to those of us involved in the study to address any issues that come up. We'd like assurance that the VMOs and AHTs during the visits have the supplies that they need. So the coordinators have gotten questionnaire packets, and that includes the questionnaire, consent form, and product list, and we'll talk about that more as we go through the manual, but they'll be distributing those as they make the assignments for the visits. And also ordering kits and anticipate how many they're going to need as the study progresses. They need to review all the questionnaires and CERs prior to sending those back to NAHMS. So the VMOs and AHTs will submit those to the coordinator, who needs to review them before sending them on to us here at NAHMS. They need to assure that the forms are completed and that they're stored in a secure manner until they're shipped to NAHMS. Abby is going to ask for 4 status updates, and we'll talk about the specific dates as we get into the manual. But we really need the coordinators to give us those updates as we move through the study so we can anticipate where we're at in getting the visits completed. If the coordinators feel they need further resources to make the visits than they believe they have available within their state, Dr. Wagner had reached out to the district directors about this study, and the district directors in concept agreed that personnel could be shared across the states within the district and even across districts if necessary. And a lot of that's based on the location of the operations and where these personnel might be. So the coordinator can reach out to try to access these other resources, and if they need assistance from NAHMS and ideas on that, we welcome those inquiries. We need to be updated on the status, and we need to account for every operation that was in that Excel file that the coordinators received. So is the visit completed? Did they decline, and if so, why? Or could they never be reached, and indicate the number and method attempts to get to those operations. If coordinators need advice or other assistance from NAHMS, we encourage you not to hesitate to ask. For those of you new to the NAHMS studies, we're happy to have one-on-one calls with coordinators to try to assist. And we also have, as I said, some very seasoned coordinators that are part of the study that I think could assist in ideas. I just wanted to share one story with you, and then I'll turn it over to Kath Marshall because she has some other commitments she needs to get to. I got an email from the person that oversaw the phase 1 of the Equine study, the NAHMS component, just yesterday, and she said that NAHMS was on an operation this past week, and this operation had agreed to phase 2 of the Equine study, and they told the NAHMS enumerator they were really looking forward to being part of phase 2 of the Equine study. And so I think that really shows that these operations that have agreed to be contacted for phase 2 are still linked in and very interested in having the VMO visits. And I think also in the past Equine studies, the VMOs have been very positively impressed with how engaged the operations are in the NAHMS studies. So with that, Kath Marshall's here. Dr. Kath Marshall is the acting M&M director, and she also was part of the core Equine team that developed both phase 1 and phase 2 of the Equine study. So with that, Dr. Marshall.
Thanks, Timothy.
So I'd like to welcome all of you to this training, and I'd also like to thank all of you for your participation in this training. I mean, we recognize that we couldn't do these studies without your efforts, and we're very grateful to you for the work that you put into making studies successful. One thing I'd like to touch on is the non-disclosure agreement. And, you know, we also couldn't do these studies without the trust and the cooperation of equine owners. And we would like to make every effort that we can to ensure that their information is confidential. NAHMS has successfully guaranteed the confidentiality of equine owners, well, all owners, who do the NAHMS studies for the last 25 years. And we would like to make sure that that continues. So, you all are being asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and that indicates that you agree to follow the conditions set in the agreement and generally do your utmost to protect the privacy of study participants. So along with everything that's in the agreement, I would like to say that this also means you cannot disclose the name of other participants in the study. So as part of your conversation with equine owners, that means that you can't say so-and-so down the road. I'm trying. You can't say that, you know, a certain equine owner down the road is also participating in the study. That would not be allowed under our confidentiality agreement. So, right. So no PII or personal identifiable information. That means the names and the addresses can be provided to anyone who hasn't signed the agreement. So you all have signed the agreement, and we are working on how you will send these agreements forward to us. So once these have been signed by the field BMOs, you can then send the names and the addresses and the phone numbers to the field BMOs that will be contacting these participants. And we're also working on how this will go forward, but we know that you can't do this by email. We believe that probably the best way to do it would be through FedEx, but we haven't made that decision yet. Hopefully by the end of the next couple of days, we'll be able to let you know how those names can go forward. And I wanted at this time to also let you know that we have a needs assessment open for the beef study, which is coming up in 2017. Some of you may have received an email with the URL. We would very much appreciate your input. We know you have experience and knowledge, and we would like to garner some of that to help us develop the beef 2017 study. If you haven't received the email and you don't know the URL, we'll make sure that Abby has that available, so just let us know and we'll forward it. That actually, the assessment is open until April 15th. So with that, I would like to say that NAHMS is looking forward to working with all of you to make this a very successful study. We're actually really excited that we were able to go forward with this study. So I'll turn it back over to Josie.
And Josie, this is Danny from AT&T. Before we continue, there seems to be a little bit of feedback coming from the microphone in the room. If we can go ahead and just adjust that.
Jason, how do we adjust the feedback on the mic in the room?
Does it sound better now?
It does sound better. Yeah, while Catherine was talking, there seems to be a little bit of fuzz coming from her end. Just towards the end.
I wonder if it's the speaker.
It might be that microphone down there.
Yeah. So, you know, if anything I said wasn't understandable, I would be willing to move and repeat parts of it. What would you like me to do?
I think that would be a wise idea if we can just go ahead and just repeat some of that. There's a few guests in the
So
room who are in the audience. Yep, please, go ahead.
Is this better?
Just start, and then I will let you know how it sounds.
All right. So, first of all, I would like to thank everybody for participating in this training program. We do recognize that we couldn't do NAHMS studies without the support of the field. So we're really grateful to all of you for the work that you put into making these studies a success. One of the things that I tried to cover earlier, and I'll... So Andrew, can you clarify that it's all hearable now?
It's still a little hard to understand. It does sound better than before, but it is a little hard.
So can you hear me, Andrew? Daniel, sorry.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, actually, Doctor.
Okay. So it is me who needs to talk louder. You want me to do it? Sure. So, yeah. Daniel, this is Josie Trubdargas. I'll try to repeat what Cass said, and we'll keep her here because I do want to open it up for a real quick Q&A when we finish just this section.
Okay,
so what Cass was talking about is the non-disclosure agreement was sent to the coordinators to be sent out to anyone that's going to be involved in collecting data for phase 2 of the study. Those non-disclosure agreements need to be completed and signed and back to the coordinators and then to NAHMS prior to the coordinators sharing any of the names, addresses, and phone numbers with those who will be assigned to collect data. We're working on how the coordinators could share the names, addresses, and phone numbers. We don't want those sent out from the coordinators to the VMOs and AHTs via email. One option we think would be to have the coordinator FedEx that information printed out and FedEx it to each of the VMOs or AHTs involved in making the visits. And Dr. Marshall's indicated that NAHMS will make a final decision on that, and it'll be sent out to the coordinators within the next few days. The other thing that she mentioned is that not only the responses can't be shared with anyone, but anyone collecting the data and doing the visits cannot share which equine operation is participating in the study. Not only among yourselves, that's the question is if you go out and you're talking about having been to one of the very prominent horse farms, and that's overheard in a public venue such as a restaurant or whatever, that's a breach of confidentiality. So if you go from one farm to the next, you can't say, oh, I was just over on farm, name the name, and say, now I'm here. The fact that they're in the study is confidential, along with their responses to the questionnaire and other data collection instruments. I think those are the highlights. Cass said we'll follow up with an email with the coordinators about the needing to have the original non-disclosure agreements and how they're going to get here, and then how the coordinators can share the PII information with the field. Daniel, I want to open it up for Q&A while Dr. Marshall's here because we wanted some of the seasoned NAHMS coordinators. I'm going to ask a question and I want them to be able to give their responses. So I'll pose the question, and then if I understand it right, they put in what to be able to speak on the phone?
And that is #2.
Okay. So for anyone that wants to answer this question, if you could hit #2 and give us your input, we would appreciate it. So the question is, in previous NAHMS studies, the NAS person in each state met with the coordinator and provided hard copy, the PII, along with part of the NAS questionnaire. The question for those that are very seasoned coordinators is how did you then share that with your VMOs when you assigned them to visit that operation? How did you get the name, address, phone number, and that other information to your field people? So if those with some past experience could hit #2 and respond to that question, we'd really appreciate it. Tom, are you on the call? In Oregon? Bob? In New England? Could either of you comment? #2.
This is Bob Brady. In the dairy study, sometimes we handed this information out at the face-to-face training. I think there were other occasions when I mailed it to the VMOs.
Just U.S. mail?
Yes, regular mail.
Okay. Well, that's good for the NAHMS decision makers to have. They'll take that into consideration. Tom, are you on? Did you have anything you wanted to share on that?
This is Lynn Tobias.
Okay.
This is Lynn Tobias.
Okay.
In the past, I guess in the past I have used U.S. mail, and I believe I may have even emailed. So it's just it was unclear what level of non-disclosure that we're going through. This is a new level to me. So,
We're kind of in a new age, and any of the federal people's email is FOIAble, as I understand it. And so I think that's the issue with just sending it to VMO in the field via an email. So again, the NAHMS decision makers will think this through, and Abby can send out a follow-up request on what the plan is. I appreciate those that spoke up. Thank you very much.
And Josie, we do have Tom on the line. I can go ahead and unmute his line.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell the difference between a star and a pound sign.
Thank you, Tom, for all of your ongoing honesty.
I'll second what Bob Brady said. Most of the time we gathered the field folks together, and then that's when we passed out. We had the original NAHMS questionnaire, so they could read. They could see what their responses were to the NAHMS questions. And the NAHMS folks were usually pretty good about putting directions and contact numbers on another sheet of paper that could later then be destroyed.
So did you ever mail them, Tom?
I can't remember. I might have. Most of the time I tried to hand them out in person.
But you're not planning to have a face-to-face with everyone that's going to be doing this time, right?
I'm going to try. I don't know.
Okay. Well, then that's a good option. So I don't think anyone has a concern if they're handed out by the coordinators face-to-face with the VMOs. And then potentially for those that are going to be assigned that there's not a face-to-face option, then a way that we can have assurance of security of the information being sent, potentially via FedEx that could be traced, tracked, not traced, would be an option. So Dr. Marshall, take that under consideration.
Well, it seems like, definitely not email, and I would say even the regular mail is probably not a good way to do it. FedEx is what I would recommend.
If we can't do face-to-face,
if we cannot do face-to-face, once those forms have been signed.
Okay. Well, we'll still follow up with an email so you have something in writing, coordinators, and Kath will lead that along with other folks here in NAHMS. This is a new paradigm for us, not having the NAHMS people turn this over to the coordinators. So we appreciate your patience as we work through the details. Okay, I think we'll move on to getting into the more specifics in the training. So for those of you that have the hard copy manual that was sent out by Abby, you would want to start to look at that as I move through. Jason is going to keep the pages up on the screen in the webinar as we move through.
Yeah, tell me on this.
I will. What I found as I was preparing to present this material is if you have access to a hard copy of the questionnaire when we get to it, as we go through the details of the manual, I think it will help you to have that alongside of the manual. It's part of the manual, but having a separate copy I think could help. And what Abby said at the beginning, in case some people got on late, is the manual and the questionnaire are on the NAHMS website. If you go to NAHMS, then go to Equine, then go to Equine 2015, and then go to Equine 2015, and go to questionnaire section. The manual and the questionnaire are posted there, and anyone, even the state people, can get onto that site and be able to view it. Okay, so what Jason has up is the table of contents for the manual. And this manual really is the Bible. It's got all the details that anyone would need to be able, I think, to go out and do a successful visit. And I'm going to go through this pretty much in order as it appears in the manual. We had the manual formatted, the electronic version. Camilla led that, where if you are in the NAHMS website and the electronic version of the manual, you can actually click, and it'll take you hot link to the various sections. And then when you get to the bottom of that section, it'll let you go back to the table of contents and go on to another section. Okay, so for the manual, there are 9 sections in the manual, and today we're going to try to get through the introduction, the study background and context, and the manual portion of the questionnaire, and then tab 4 is the actual questionnaire itself. So, Jason, can we move to the contents of the introduction? All right, so in the introduction, there's a table of contents here for you, and we'll move on to the next page. And that's our agenda for today. And I'll try not to have too much flapping noise as I move through. And we also have the agenda for our next training, which is next Wednesday, and that'll focus on the biologics and the biosecurity assessment. The next part within the introduction is the speaker biographies for those people that did the training modules. And again, Abby's going to go over at the end of the call the modules that are available, and we really think those that will be involved in data collection can benefit from viewing all of those modules. The one that we need to request that everybody absolutely view is the NAHMS module, because that's part of the security training and non-disclosure training that we need to be sure everyone has participated in. The next page is people involved in study design, and we have the contributions and the core team listed here. Okay, so section 2, tab 2, Jason. Again, we have a table of contents, and the first page within that section is the study timeline. So I am going to go over that in a bit of detail. The NAHMS data collection, we call that phase 2, is complete, and so this was the first general questionnaire. Many of the questions on that survey will repeat from previous equine studies, and it will allow us to compare general equine health management between 1998, 2005, and 2015. NAHMS turned over the names to NAHMS in the fall of 2015, and by that time, phase 2 had been postponed, so we just held on to those. We got the questionnaires from NAHMS, the first phase survey, in the fall. We did data validation, and we're now in the process of data analysis and creating the first report from the NAHMS studies. That'll be the NAHMS data. Abby sent out to all the coordinators the county numbers so that they could do a bit of pre-planning. That was accomplished by the end of 2015. We've got the AgLearn training modules available for you. Those are the ones Abby will talk about in a bit more detail. And they've been available for a while, and we're hoping in the next month or so that people will view those that'll be involved with data collection. The participants' names were turned over to the coordinators via an Excel file that was on a USB key. And I believe I talked to all the coordinators yesterday that they either had received that USB key or felt it would be at their office, and they just hadn't been into the office yet because they were in the field. The next thing is these trainings. So we're doing the questionnaire training now, and we'll be doing the biologics and biosecurity assessment training March 30th. The VMO visits will begin in May, and we want them all to be completed by the end of September. The biologics collection will be in that same time frame, although collection of samples for the parasite testing may go on a bit longer than the end of September, and we'll talk about that a bit more in our next webinar. Abby's going to be sending an email to the coordinators asking for 4 updates, and the dates are listed on this page. And we would want to know how many operations had been contacted. And for those operations that had been contacted, we would like to receive the NAHMS ID and whether they had completed the questionnaire and which biologics they had agreed to participate in. That'll help us track getting responses out to the participants in a timely manner via double check that we were getting out reports to the operations if we know the NAHMS ID and what they had agreed to participate in. And Abby will detail in her email to the coordinators what information she needs back from you. The next page is an info sheet that all of these operations that you'll be contacting received through the NAHMS visit. So it gives the objectives of the study, and it also gives the 2 phases of the study. Realize that if people that got this refer to it, it says we were starting phase 2 in August, and obviously of 2015 that didn't happen. And so you may need to do a little bit of talking about the fact that we're revisiting phase 2, and we'll get into how we're going to be making contact with the operations. But this is info they received during the NAHMS visit. The next is keep going, Jason, that's part of the info sheet, is a map of the states that are in the study. For reporting of the data from the NAHMS Equine 2015-16 study, we're going to do that nationally and by 4 regions. For those of you that are new to NAHMS studies, we never report at the state level. The results are only reported at the region and national level. Next. This info sheet that Jason's got up on the screen are the benefits of participating in the NAHMS study. And again, NAHMS provided this to the operations as part of their contact. And it highlights the things that we felt were incentives for people to participate in phase 2 of the study. So all the operations that you'll be contacting will have had this information provided to them from NAHMS. Yeah. The next couple pages are who we have as the coordinators for the states and for Bob, the region, participating in the study. We have had some coordinator turnover. To remind you, we've had several conference calls with the coordinators about the study and their responsibilities, but several of the people that are now listed as coordinators are new. And so take a look at this. It's changed since you got the manual originally that the coordinators got about who were the coordinators in the various states. You'll note that for some states, there's both a federal and state level coordinator that are listed in here. And as Abby gets updates on who the coordinators are, we'll periodically make that available to everyone so that if people are like, wow, who's doing the coordination in Maryland, they can get in touch with the right person. The next sheet is the number of operations by county within state. And as I mentioned already, this was shared with the coordinators some time ago, just for pre-planning purposes. And that's several pages, Jason. Okay. So, Daniel, not Andrew, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for any questions or comments on this section. So we'll wait just a minute to see if anyone has any comments or questions on this section. Okay. I think we'll go ahead and continue then. So we're going to go to tab 3. And we're going to go to the page that says before the VS visit. Okay. So I'd like to cover this section before we take a break, and then I think we can get into the actual sections within the questionnaire. So this section before the visit is a really key part that everyone needs to read, not only the coordinators, but BMOs and AHTs. It really has the details of what it takes to be able to be prepared to effectively do the visit to the equine operations. So in this section, it tells you the fact that they've already participated in the NAHMS visit and completed the NAHMS questionnaire. Approximately half of the operations that completed the NAHMS questionnaire agreed to be contacted for phase 2 of the study. A key point, very key point, is these operations, the names that the coordinators have agreed to be contacted for phase 2. They have not agreed to participate. So it's going to be extremely important as we make that first contact that we do it in a way that we acknowledge that they agreed for us to have a contact with them, but then we're going to need to encourage them to let us make a visit to the operation and encourage them to participate in the study. So the initial contact, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, is critical. And this will be done by phone, by the VMO or AHT, whoever the coordinator assigns, in order to get, if you will, your foot in the door to be able to set up a time to do the visit. For the coordinators, we are sending out a letter to each of the operations that signed the consent form, the first consent form, to be contacted for phase 2. And we're going to be sending that letter out next week. And if Jason would just go to the next. So in your manual, you actually have a copy of the letter that's going to be sent to all 948, I believe, operations, to let them know that we are going to proceed with phase 2 and that a VMO or AHT will be contacting them about setting up a visit. And so your call to them will not be their first notice that phase 2 is happening. And we did ask for coordinators' input on the content of that letter, and several were very helpful in helping us with that. For the coordinators' perspective, we had 20 operations across the entire 28 states, for which on the consent form from NAHMS, we did not get a phone number. And so obviously that's a problem. And we reached back to NAHMS and they were unable to provide that to us. And so the plan is, along with the letter that's in the manual, we'll be sending a buck slip that says, for your operation, during the first visit, we were unable to get a phone number, And so if you're interested still in participating in phase 2 of the study, we're going to ask you to call the coordinator in your state and provide contact information so they can set up a visit. So it's only for 20 operations, but Tom already picked up on the fact he's got one in Oregon that doesn't have a phone number, and it's a P.O. box. How is he supposed to do this? And then it's really up to the operation to contact Tom and say, I'm in, here's my contact information. For all of the others, you should have a phone number that you can contact the people and make that initial visit with them on the phone. Another key thing is the consent forms that we received. We did our very, very best to read. Some of them were typed, so it was easy, and others it was handwritten. So if you get a phone number that doesn't seem to jive as you call them, please let Abby know, and we will try to reach back to NAHMS and see if we can get a correct number. And also realize the numbers were provided to the NAHMS people a year ago. So we do have the potential risk that it's no longer their phone number. Okay, so now, Jason, if we could go into data collection materials after the letter. Yeah. Okay, so just a real quick summary here. When we had to postpone phase 2 of the study, we did offer to people to participate in the parasite portion because it didn't rely on a VMO visit to collect samples. And so there are 131 operations that completed that parasite questionnaire, and they've already been sent their kits for the sampling. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the biologics. But that's what's on the top of this page. So for data collection materials, we're going to go into these briefly. The key point again is these operations have not agreed to participate in phase 2. They've agreed to be contacted. And I've been told multiple times that we now need to get an agreement for them to participate in this phase of the study. So as part of the questionnaire packet, the first page is this participant agreement. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. So there's also the Bml Questionnaire, and each coordinator has received what we anticipate may be the number of questionnaires, consent forms, and the product list that we'll talk about for their state. If they get tremendous response rates and they need more, Abby is more than happy to provide those. Again, we'll talk about this in a little more detail, but there's 4 colored copies of lists of products and 3 of products, excuse me, and 1 of tick habitats. And those are provided to you in order to have visual things that the participant can look at in order to answer some of the questions on the questionnaire. Okay, so we'll go to the next page, Jason, that says biologics. Okay, so the biologics data collection forms and kits, I'm not going to talk about that today in any great detail other than to say it's going to be covered in more detail in the March 30th training. All kits can be ordered through Abby, and again, it's really up to the coordinator to decide if they're going to order kits and disperse them to the field, and we'll talk about this on the 30th. The other option is that VMOs can order them directly from Abby in order to. Okay, and then the other thing we have on this page is the Sharepoint site with reference documents. Most of those documents are now on the NAHMS website so that the state people can access them. So when you go to the Sharepoint site, the federal people, you may just find the link that takes you to the NAHMS website. And if you're having any trouble getting to those materials, the reference documents, the training modules, the webinars, let Abby know and she can get that for you. Okay, so we're now on to before the interview. I'm going to go ahead and read these because I think it's really important that we have it as part of the training module. Coordinators have a list of the equine operations to be contacted, and it's up to the coordinators to assign those contacts. Anyone that's going to be making a contact and then doing a visit needs to familiarize themselves with the questionnaire and the biologics components, and really the details are contained in this manual. During the NAHMS visit, the participants were provided with the fact sheets that I already went over, so they have some information about the study. Some participants may need to be encouraged by whoever makes this initial contact to participate in phase 2. So realize they've agreed to be contacted. They haven't yet agreed to participate. Knowledge about the operation type, use of the equine, the inventory can be very helpful in planning for the visit. Generally that has been provided by giving the coordinators part of the NAHMS questionnaire. NAHMS no longer will allow us to do that. So we've provided a phone script, which is the next page in the manual, to help you gather the information in that initial call that can help you plan your first visit. So in making that call, introduce yourself, explain why you're contacting them. They should have already received this letter, so this should not be a cold call. And then explain why you want to come out and what the process will be during the visit. The next page is the script, the phone script that we thought you could use. You could do this, print it out, and use it for each operation to gather the information that you need to effectively be able to do the visit. The information we have on the script is essentially what NAHMS used to provide to the coordinators and BMLs. Okay, so on the next page, these visits, the questionnaire will be completed through a face-to-face visit. It may be very helpful to provide a blank questionnaire to the participant, and then you have one that you're filling out hard copy so that they can follow along. It's important to make an appointment for your interview. NAHMS used to provide directions to the sites. They no longer do that, so you'll need to get directions. Don't assume the address that is in the material provided by NAHMS is where the horses are. So it'll be important to get directions where you're going to be able to do the questionnaire and complete the biologics. You may also want to ask things about, does the dog bite? Are there any issues getting into the property? Those kinds of things. Again, NAHMS used to make notes about that from their visit, and we're not able to share that with you based on the new format. And then you will want to talk to the participant in that initial phone call about things that will help them answer the questions. So they, if they have medical records, if they have financial records available, it would be important for them to have them with them when you do this first visit. And then the other thing on this page, and I won't read all of those off, is a checklist that those that are very familiar with the NAHMS studies feel is important for you to have when you're going to be doing the. So I think in order to take the break when we should, Jason, do we want to take a break until 10, and then we'll start into the next section?
Yeah, this is a logical place to break.
There's a question. When should we start making the first contact phone call? Okay, so we had a question, thank you. When to make the first contact. I believe that the group decided, since we'll be mailing the letter next week, we'll be mailing the letter next week, that we didn't want any contacts before April 4th. So that people would have time to have gotten the letter, preferably later in that week. And contacts can't be made until you have the person's name, address, and phone number, and so we have to have the non-disclosure completed before that too. Any others? None. Okay.